There is a strange kind of power that lives in silence, a power often overlooked in a world that worships noise. Machiavelli understood this clearly. The ruler who speaks least, reveals least, and anticipates most possesses an advantage that cannot be measured in simple terms. It is the advantage of unpredictability, the advantage of confusion in the minds of those who wish to read him. Because human beings, by nature, gravitate toward what they understand. They feel threatened by what they cannot predict. And when a person cannot predict you, they cannot control you. In the quiet corridors of every kingdom, whether political, personal, or psychological, the one who holds his intentions close becomes formidable. People begin to project their own fears onto him. They hesitate, unsure of whether the step they take is safe or dangerous. To Machiavelli, this uncertainty was not merely a tactic, it was a shield. A ruler who is unreadable is a ruler who cannot be manipulated, cannot be cornered, and cannot be easily defeated. And so the invitation given to you today is to explore the immense strategic value of allowing your next move to remain hidden, not as an act of deception, but as an act of wisdom. Human beings have a natural hunger for clarity. We want to know what others are thinking, where they are going, what they plan to do next. This hunger becomes even more intense when someone carries ambition, charisma, or influence. People begin to circle around such a person, hoping to predict their next step so they can either align themselves with it or undermine it. Machiavelli believed that this desire for prediction is one of the weaknesses of mankind, because anyone who wishes to predict another person must first feel confident that the person before them is readable. Once they feel they have figured you out, they relax, letting down their guard. They make assumptions. They underestimate you. They test your boundaries. This is precisely why Machiavelli advised rulers to remain elusive, even to those who seemed closest. By keeping your interior world concealed, you prevent others from using your transparency as a weapon. Silence, in this context, becomes a strategy. Ambiguity becomes a fortress. And those who stand outside, looking in, remain unsure whether they have truly grasped who you are, or whether they are only interacting with a shadow of your deeper intentions. To become unreadable is not to become cold or distant. It is to become intentional. It means recognizing that not every emotion deserves an audience, not every dream deserves early exposure, and not every plan deserves premature revelation. Most people lose before they even begin, not because their goals are impossible, but because they expose those goals too quickly. They announce their desires before they secure them. They reveal their roots before they walk them. And the world, hearing these revelations, responds in ways that weaken, discourage, or sabotage them. Machiavelli's warning echoes through time. The moment people know your intentions, they begin to prepare for them. They formulate counters. They assess your weaknesses. They organize alliances. But if you maintain a sense of mystery, the world cannot determine whether you are stepping forward, stepping backward, or standing still. In this state of uncertainty, those who might harm, you cannot prepare their strike, and those who admire you cannot place unrealistic expectations upon your shoulders. Your movements remain entirely your own, untouched by external influence. Imagine a lone figure walking through a marketplace. People watch him. Some smile, some whisper, some analyze the way he carries himself. Now imagine that figure walking with absolute composure, not revealing what he thinks, what he wants, or where he is going next. The onlookers begin to form stories in their heads. Some imagine he is powerful. Others imagine he is dangerous. Others believe he is wise. The truth may be none of these things, but that is irrelevant. What matters is that his silence forces interpretation. Machiavelli understood this profoundly. When you say nothing, people fill the silence with their own assumptions, and their assumptions often grant you more power than any words ever could. The unreadable person becomes a canvas on which others paint their fears, hopes, and expectations. And when you are perceived this way, you are no longer merely a participant in the world. You become a phenomenon. People do not approach you the way they approach the predictable. They approach you with caution, curiosity, and respect. But here's the critical truth. Becoming unreadable is not an act of hiding. It is an act of structuring yourself differently. It is the decision to live with emotional discipline. When people speak negatively about you, you do not react immediately. When someone surprises you with unexpected news, you do not let your shock broadcast itself across your face. When you feel anger rise within you, you do not give it visible expression. Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must master his expressions, for the face is often a traitor to the mind. The face reveals what the mind wishes to conceal. Train your face, he would say, to remain calm even when your heart is in flames. Train your voice to remain steady when your thoughts are racing. In doing so, you reclaim sovereignty over yourself. Others may try to interpret you, but they will never access the truth. And in that gap between what they think and what is real, you find your power. To move in silence is to give yourself space to think. When you reveal your every idea, people respond with opinions that distort your clarity. They project their fears onto your vision, and suddenly your confidence weakens. When you tell someone your dream, they may laugh, or doubt, or remind you of your limitations, not because they are wise, but because they are speaking from their own level of understanding. Machiavelli would tell you, protect your mind from unnecessary voices. The unreadable person is not unreadable because he wants to confuse others, but because he wants to preserve clarity within himself. Silence becomes a purification process, removing the noise that dilutes ambition. When you do not explain yourself constantly, you learn to trust your own judgment. You learn to act independently. You learn to value the hidden power that comes from planning quietly and executing boldly. And when your actions finally appear, they shock the world, because they were never predicted, never discussed, never anticipated. There is also a psychological dimension to unreadability. People who overshare do so because they fear being misunderstood. They hope that by explaining everything, they will be seen clearly. But this instinct often backfires. The more you explain yourself, the more material you give others to misinterpret. Human beings interpret based on their own experiences, not yours. They take your words and filter them through their insecurities, assumptions, and biases. This is why the unreadable person appears stronger. He does not give people raw material to distort. He limits access. Machiavelli would say that power does not come from openness. It comes from control. Control over what you express. Control over what you reveal. Control over what others get to see. And by mastering this control, you free yourself from the exhausting task of trying to be understood in a world that is determined to misinterpret you anyway. Thus, the first part of our journey concludes with a simple but powerful truth. Being unreadable is not about playing games. It is about protecting your inner world. It is about recognizing that your thoughts, intentions, and visions are precious, too precious to be thrown into the open, where they can be trampled by misunderstanding or sabotaged by envy. The unreadable person lives with intention. They speak with purpose. They reveal only what is necessary. And because of this disciplined way of living, they move through the world with a quiet authority that cannot be fabricated. Machiavelli saw this as a hallmark of true leadership. A leader who cannot be read cannot be controlled. A leader who cannot be predicted cannot be defeated. And now, as we transition into the second section, we explore how unreadability shapes your relationships, your circle, and the way people respond to your presence. When Machiavelli wrote about power, he was not merely referring to thrones, armies, and political strategies. He was speaking about human nature. Every relationship, personal, professional, or social, contains a subtle power dynamic. Even friendships possess layers of influence, admiration, jealousy, and expectation. And in these dynamics, the unreadable person has a distinct advantage. When people cannot decipher your emotional patterns, they cannot manipulate them. When they cannot predict your responses, they become more cautious with their words and actions. This creates a natural barrier that protects you from exploitation. Machiavelli advised rulers to be deeply aware of the intentions of others, for not all smiles are sincere, and not all advice is innocent. By maintaining an air of unpredictability, you prevent others from assuming they have emotional or psychological access to you. This does not mean you distrust everyone. It simply means you never grant anyone more access than their loyalty, behavior, and consistency have earned. In relationships, unreadability has a unique effect. It shifts the balance of curiosity. Most people reveal themselves fully too early, believing that transparency guarantees connection. But Machiavelli understood that human beings are naturally drawn to mystery. What is easily known becomes less valued. What remains partially hidden becomes more intriguing. When you maintain layers, people lean toward you instead of away from you. They wonder, they observe, they listen more attentively. They treat your presence with a kind of seriousness, as though you are not someone to be taken lightly. This creates a gravitational pull, not through manipulation, but through self-respect. You show that your inner world is not a public place. You demonstrate that your emotions are not toys and your dreams are not entertainment. And in doing so, you elevate yourself in the eyes of others, simply by refusing to be entirely accessible. One of Machiavelli's greatest warnings was about predictability. The predictable person becomes vulnerable because others can map their behavior, anticipate their decisions, and influence their choices. Predictability is a comfort to those who wish to control you. But unpredictability disrupts this comfort. It forces others to remain unsure, and in their uncertainty, they hesitate. This hesitation is where your power grows. For instance, when people expect you to react emotionally, and you instead respond calmly, you shift the dynamic instantly. When they expect you to chase, but you remain steady, they rethink their assumptions. When they expect you to reveal your every thought, but you choose silence, they begin questioning their understanding of you. Each of these moments accumulates into a deeper form of respect. Even those who do not like you cannot deny the strength that quiet unpredictability radiates. But unreadability is not the absence of expression. It is the mastery of expression. You are not suppressing yourself. You are choosing what is worth expressing. Machiavelli believed that a wise leader knows when to show kindness, when to show strength, and when to show nothing at all. Emotional timing becomes a tool. There are moments when vulnerability is appropriate, but it must be given intentionally, not impulsively. When you control your expression, you control your narrative. And when you control your narrative, others cannot define you. They cannot attach labels. They cannot assign motives. They cannot claim to know you better than you know yourself. You remain the author of your story, not a character written by the assumptions of others. Unreadability also protects your ambitions. When people know your plans, they may feel threatened, competitive, or envious. They may attempt to sabotage you, discourage you, or beat you to your own ideas. But when your plans remain hidden, your progress happens without opposition. Your success arrives unexpectedly. People do not see your preparation, only your results. And Machiavelli would say, this is how victory should occur, quietly, efficiently, without unnecessary noise. The unreadable person does not announce that they are working. They simply work. They do not broadcast their strategy. They simply execute. And by the time the world takes notice, the battles have already been won quietly behind closed doors. Unreadability also allows you to observe others with clarity. When you reveal nothing, others reveal themselves. They expose their intentions, their insecurities, their ambitions, and their loyalties. Machiavelli advised rulers to listen more than they speak, for listening uncovers truths that speaking often disrupts. When people believe you are open, they become more guarded. But when they believe you are simply present and quiet, they relax their defenses. They talk freely. They reveal their character. And in their revelations, you discover who is trustworthy, who is manipulative, who is jealous, and who is sincere. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing you who they truly are without exposing who you truly are. But unreadability also demands discipline. It is easy to react emotionally. It is easy to overshare when excited. It is easy to reveal plans when pressured. The challenge is to move with intention even when your emotions demand expression. Machiavelli insisted that discipline is not only about actions, it is about speech. When you speak less, your words gain weight. When you reveal less, your movements gain impact. When you withhold unnecessarily, you conserve emotional and mental energy, and this energy becomes the foundation of your strategic strength. The unpredictable person is not unpredictable because they are chaotic. They are unpredictable because they act from discipline, not impulse. Thus, unreadability becomes a shield, a filter, and a weapon. A shield against manipulation, a filter for relationships, and a weapon against those who wish to undermine you. Machiavelli did not teach unreadability as a form of coldness. He taught it as a form of power. A person who knows everything about you can destroy you. A person who knows nothing about you cannot harm you. And so the unreadable person becomes untouchable, not because they are perfect, but because they understand that silence, discretion, and unpredictability are forms of wisdom in a world that constantly tries to pry open the doors of your inner life. This leads us now to the third and final section, how to live this philosophy practically, and how unreadability becomes a lifestyle that reinforces your strength, purpose, and personal evolution. To live an unreadable life does not mean living a disconnected one. It means living with boundaries that protect your mental clarity and emotional energy. Machiavelli argued that a leader must always maintain a certain internal distance, a space within themselves that no one fully enters. This space becomes the sanctuary of your judgment. It is where you think clearly, without interference. It is where your instincts sharpen. It is where you analyze information without emotional clutter. The unreadable person preserves this inner sanctuary by carefully choosing what to reveal and when. They understand that revealing everything is not honesty. It is vulnerability without purpose. And vulnerability without purpose is weakness. Instead, they reveal enough to create connection, but not enough to be predictable. Enough to be relatable, but not enough to be manipulated. They move through life with a calm, steady presence that silently communicates, "I am here, but you will not read me." To apply unreadability in your daily life, begin with your reactions. Reactions are windows into your internal world. If someone can trigger you easily, they control you. If someone can predict how you will respond, they can guide you like a puppet. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who is emotionally reactive is the easiest to overthrow, because his enemies do not need strength. They only need strategy. And so your first task is to slow down your reactions. Do not respond immediately when you feel anger. Do not explain yourself when you feel misunderstood. Do not defend yourself whenever someone misinterprets you. Let people sit with their assumptions. Let them struggle to interpret your silence. In your restraint, you gain power. You show that your emotions are not at the mercy of others. You show that your thoughts are not easily accessed. And when people realize they can no longer predict what will upset you or trigger you, they lose their ability to control you. Next, control the flow of information about your life. People do not need to know your financial situation, your romantic plans, your ambitions, or your challenges, unless sharing benefits you. Machiavelli taught that information is the currency of power, and the one who controls information controls outcomes. When you limit access to your personal details, you limit the ability of others to form strategies around you. They cannot compete where they cannot see. They cannot sabotage what they do not know. They cannot compare themselves to what you do not reveal. And in this strategic silence, you create an environment where your progress becomes inevitable, because it is protected from the opinions, fears, and intentions of others. Your growth happens quietly, and your success emerges loudly. Another key principle of unreadability is mastering your emotional expression. Do not let your face betray your thoughts. Do not let your body language reveal your inner state. Calmness must become your default posture. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who can remain calm in chaos gains psychological dominance over those who panic easily. Calmness is intimidating because it suggests preparation. It suggests confidence. It suggests that you know something others do not. And so, whether you are experiencing joy, anxiety, sadness, or anger, learn to hold your composure. This does not mean suppressing your emotions. It means expressing them intentionally rather than impulsively. When you do show emotion, it becomes meaningful. People take your feelings seriously because they know you do not display them recklessly. Unreadability also requires you to become comfortable with being misunderstood. You must understand that people will create stories about you, and these stories will rarely match the truth. But this is not your problem. Machiavelli believed that reputation is shaped not by endless explanations, but by consistent action. If your actions remain strong, strategic, and disciplined, people's assumptions cannot harm you. In fact, these assumptions often work in your favor. The unreadable person becomes the subject of intrigue. People debate their motives, wonder about their intentions, and analyze their movements. This constant speculation creates a psychological presence even when you are silent. You become memorable simply by being difficult to define. To live unreadable is also to live patient. Do not rush to prove yourself. Do not rush to speak. Do not rush to clarify misunderstandings. Machiavelli wrote that time is one of the strongest weapons a leader possesses. Time reveals loyalty. Time exposes liars. Time clarifies intentions. and time rewards those who plan carefully. When you are unreadable, you naturally move slower, not because you lack confidence, but because you do not let pressure dictate your pace. You choose your timing. You strike when ready. You reveal when it benefits you. And in doing so, you create a rhythm of life that others cannot predict, imitate, or disrupt. Ultimately, unreadability becomes a kind of quiet mastery. Mastery over self, over emotion, over expression, and over intention. It allows you to move through life without leaving unnecessary footprints. It protects you from enemies and preserves your inner peace. It forces others to meet you with respect because they cannot read you cheaply. Machiavelli believed that a leader must not be fully exposed to the world. Otherwise, he becomes vulnerable to the ambitions and fears of others. To be unreadable is to understand the difference between transparency and access, between expression and exposure, between authenticity and availability. You remain true to yourself, but you do not hand yourself away. You remain open-hearted, but not open book. You remain kind, but not predictable. And so the philosophy of unreadability is not about manipulation. It is about preservation. It is about creating a life where your mind remains sovereign, your emotions remain disciplined, and your plans remain unchallenged. In a world where everyone is broadcasting their every thought, you gain advantage by becoming the exception, the silent one, the intentional one, the unpredictable one. Machiavelli would say that power belongs not to the loudest, but to the most controlled, not to the one who reveals, but to the one who restrains. And if you learn to embody this philosophy, you will move through life with a quiet dominance that demands respect. You will become a person who cannot be underestimated, manipulated, or predicted. You will become unreadable. This is the Golden Circle Philosophy channel. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching.